Well, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's well. Today's live training. I have coffee today because I'm still recovering from my marathon and I'm a bit tired. And my body's fatigued. So I'm, trying to get back to work because obviously life moves on. And you got to get back to doing your stuff, irrespective of what you've just done. So, interesting one. About these funky little laws of the universe type of things, okay? So we're going to talk about those a bit today. For those of you who are on Facebook a lot, you've probably heard of the law of attraction. And the law of attraction is, you attract what you think and feel about, which spurned the book and film called The Secret in roughly about 2007, which I've talked to before, which I was once into, which led to a lot of people sitting there and wishing for their lives to get better without actually doing anything, unfortunately. So, yeah. But I'm not going to talk about the law of attraction today. I'm going to tell you a few little stories. Now, obviously, in my in the work that I do hear a lot of excuses, because that's just normal. That's life, When you're in the fitness game, when you're in the fitness and health game, what tends to happen is you do hear a lot of excuses about why people don't want to do certain things, which is totally understandable. Because let's be honest, looking after your nutrition and your diet is hard. Exercising is hard. Anybody that tells you it's easy is a bloody liar. It's not. It's difficult. So, obviously, people put in place obstacles to stop themselves doing things. Because one of the major reasons is because they don't class themselves as a priority. Okay, so people don't class themselves as a priority amongst everything else. So they allow their own health to deteriorate because they think it's honourable to sacrifice yourself, which isn't true. It's honourable to develop yourself so you can help others better rather than sacrifice yourself. And I don't care what anybody says on that. Because if you're no good, if you're not feeling right, if you're not feeling well, how can you help anybody else? So that's one of the key things that people do. So there's this almost badge of honour about putting other people first, which is okay if you're serving people, but if you can't serve people well, be that your family, be that your clients, be that your customers, whoever, if you feel like shit, you just can't do it. It's not possible because eventually your body will go, sorry, this has got to stop. So that's why I think sometimes people put a lot of obstacles in the way of getting fit and healthy or looking after themselves because they don't class themselves as a priority. So I've had people say to me genuinely, I'll be ready to start looking after myself in 18 months' time. Or in 3 months' time, or in 6 months' time. The longest I actually heard was 18 months. Now, let's put that into context, which is nonsense, by the way. That's just a exaggeration. The truth is, let's look at it honestly. There's two problems with that. Number one is that you're assuming that you're guaranteed another 18 months because none of us are guaranteed anything. And the way the world is now, we can see that, life is short. The second problem is, let's imagine for a second that you only gained 1 extra pound in weight a month. You'd be 18 pounds heavier. There you go, I'll do the maths for you, I'm good like that. So you'd be 18 pounds heavier in 18 months' time. That's work on the basis that you gain an extra pound. If you only gain £2 a month, which is easily done, that's a big chunk of change. You'd be nearly 3 stone heavier. So this is the point I'm trying to make. There's a law called the law of diminishing intent. Okay. Now, there's these kind of universal laws, principles that apply to us all. One is it's to do with how we are as human beings. One's called the law of diminishing intent, which states the longer you leave something, the less likely you are of doing it. Because we tend to be responsive creatures. So when something happens and we respond to it, we're like, I need to do that. I've got to do that now. And the longer you leave something, the less likely you are of doing it. And that's just in our makeup. That's just who we are. And everybody who's probably watching this has probably experienced that. Okay? So it's very much akin to this thing about what we try and do is we try and break the rules of nature. And we try and break the rules. So, for example, just because we don't like going outdoors in winter, we don't think we should put weight on. Or we don't think we should become unhealthy because we wanted to stay in the house for 6 months. Yeah? And then we think it's weird that we've totally eroded any sort of progress we've made and we've put weight on, because we're trying to break the rules. And you can't do it. You can't break the rules. But we think we can, which is really odd. So the title of the video, of course, is Breaking the Law. That's one law you need to break. You need to break the law of diminishing intent. You need to break this waiting thing, because what are you waiting for in order to act? What are you waiting for? Because anybody that's been like me, I've experienced bereavement earlier than the time, as it were, not natural causes, not, in their 80s or 90s. I've, lost a parent in their 60s, early 60s. When you see that, it reminds you that we're not invincible. So if you keep waiting, things aren't going to just improve on their own. But you have to acknowledge that there is this law of diminishing intent. So if you keep putting things off, your intent to do it, your will to do it is going to drop over time. So you need to take the action. You need to move on it, yeah? And you need to move on it quite quickly, yeah? Otherwise, your will to do it and your enthusiasm for something will drop, okay? You might not get 18 months. And if you think that because you're different and your situation's different, oh, that's fine, but I'm different, my situation's different, which we all do because we're egotistical people and we've all become entitled in the modern world. If you think your situation's different, you've got a shock coming, because your situation isn't different. None of us are different. We've all got to face the same things. So if you're finding yourself putting things off, then you're going to face the consequences for that, particularly things that could potentially harm you in some way. So if it is your health, if it is your weight, if it is your sedentary, your activity levels or whatever it might be, just because you think you're entitled to put things off doesn't mean that you won't face the consequences of that. Okay? So you have to break this law of diminishing intent, and you need to act now on something. Otherwise, even 2-3 weeks down the line, you're going to be 2-3 weeks further back, particularly in my game, in the fitness game, or the weight loss game, or whatever you want to call it. 2-3 weeks could mean an extra £4. It could mean an extra, and you don't know what's going to happen in that time, because we're assuming that we've got this time to be able to do things. And you might not. You just might not, because we're not immortal. None of us are. And that's just the facts. So if you try and go against that, it's not going to work out very well for you. So you have to break this law of diminishing intent. You have to act. Otherwise, that will to do it, that gym session you're putting off, that fitness session you're putting off, that whatever it is you're putting off, you're not going to get more enthused about it with time. You're going to get less enthused, which is more likely if you're not doing anything at all, which doesn't help anybody. So if you want to move forward, you want to make, you want to be successful, you want to get results, you have to act on those impulses, and you have to act on the things you need to do, and you need to do it now, because your enthusiasm will wane over time. And a lot of people are going to be experiencing that now. Like I keep saying, sun's coming out, it's getting warmer. People are now facing the consequences of the fact that they've done bugger all for 4 or 5 months. Yeah, and the excuses and the stories don't matter. You've either done the work or you haven't. Yeah, and if you've got to this point and you've not got the results that you've got, well, that's going to show. And you can come up with all the, oh yeah, but I was different and I didn't want to eat well, and I wanted to eat comfort food in the winter and I didn't want to train, and I've got a massitive car and a big telly and a big house and I drink £4 coffees every day, but I can't afford to look after myself. Don't get me started. All those excuses don't matter, because nature will always find a way and it will always win, and you'll always have those consequences. So if you want to do something, do it now, because putting it off means that you won't go into it as enthused as you were when you thought about it, and chances are you won't even do it at all. So if you're going to act, you need to act now. Law of diminishing intent. That's probably more important than sitting there thinking about the law of attraction and hoping things are going to come to you by wishing and writing things down and having vision boards and all this sort of stuff. It doesn't work like that necessarily all the time. It works by doing the stuff, by taking the action, building the momentum. I said this to a client yesterday. Building the momentum builds the motivation. When you get more motivation, you get more momentum, you want to do more, yeah? And it comes from action, not by putting things off, yeah? Don't face the consequences of those actions. If you've got something you need to do, take action on it, start today, do something, keep the enthusiasm going, keep the momentum going, and the motivation will follow the momentum. Simple as that. Have a good day.